Sam, appreciate your time, man. I'm excited to dive into everything you guys are building with Atlético Dallas. Just to start, man, give us the background story on how this all came about. What made you guys want to start this club from scratch?
Yeah, I got to give a lot of credit to our chairman and my good friend and Matt Valentine. Yeah, 3 years ago or so, he gave me a call and said, "I'm on a recruiting trip with my son. He was getting recruited to play soccer at Furman, and I met a guy. He's an investment banker. He's got some soccer deals, and I'm going to look at some soccer deals." And the original plan was purchase Las Vegas Lights. USL wouldn't allow us to buy it, shut it down, move it to Dallas. But they said, "Hey, we're in early conversations with one of the municipalities there, and would you just want to start a new franchise in Dallas?" Matt and I are from Arlington, a suburb here. Have known each other 40 years since we were 12 years old. Doing this in this market in the city we grew up in, on some of the fields that we played on as kids, it's been a really special journey. 3 years has gone by lightning quick, and we're inside of a year now, and we'll be taking the field at the Cotton Bowl, and we're excited about it.
That's incredible, man. Full circle moment for sure.
Full circle.
How difficult was it for you guys to even get this expansion team approved? Because, you hear all the time about how, new teams come into markets or into leagues, but for your average fan or consumer, they don't really understand what that process is like. So from like high level, can you kind of talk about what that experience was like and how hard it was for you guys to actually get this off the ground?
Yeah, again, I think money solves a lot of those problems, right? Like you gotta raise enough money to give yourself enough runway to get to the field. So our plan from the very beginning, and again, this was Matt's world. Matt, I made a career out of radio. I worked in radio groups, radio stations, in several different markets across the country. But Matt was an investor and a finance guy, and was fortunate enough to sell a pipeline business in 2016, and obviously knows that space, knows investors, knows where these pockets of money and investment are at in the city. So our plan was always, we got to raise enough money to get us through this time, right? We got an office full of 20 people out there right now, 22 people, trying to get this thing to the field, and not a lot of revenue coming in right now. It's all burn. And so raising enough money, one, and again, Matt did a great job, found some really great partners. We raised enough money, obviously, to get us through these times, but also to get us through those first couple of years if, things go one way or another. So we got a little padding. The USL wanted us actually start play last year in 26. But we really pushed back and said, you know what, we don't want to rush it. We've raised enough money to do it this way. And so that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about how Dallas is near and dear to your heart. You grew up there, you guys have an affinity for the community and obviously the sport of soccer. Um, but you're also competing with FC Dallas, and there's already a team there. So kind of talk about how you're differentiating yourself in the marketplace and why you guys even saw an opportunity to build a new team here.
Yeah, first off, Dallas Fort Worth is a huge market. I mean, it's 100 miles east to west. It's 100 miles north to south. And you take out the Fort Worth side, take out the west side, you just look at the Dallas Metro, which is, up and down 75, up and down the tollway. The city of Dallas alone is almost 2 million people. Where the Cotton Bowl sits and where Toyota Stadium sits is about 38 miles apart. And so can be in Dallas traffic. It could be an hour and a half,
Wow.
hour and 40 minutes to get up to Frisco. And so, we looked at it this way, as we really wanted to own the city, right? And the municipalities in Dallas County. When the burn kicked off in 1990, well, it was 96 when MLS kicked. So the burn original home stadium was the Cotton Bowl, which is where we're going to play. They averaged somewhere between 14 and 16,000 fans at the Cotton Bowl when they kicked off. The city has doubled in size, and the Latino or the multicultural audience has almost quadrupled in size since that time. I meet people, Malcolm, every day when we're out and about in the community that are truly thankful and come up to me and say, I haven't been to a professional soccer game since they moved to Frisco,
Mm.
or I've been to one or two in the last 20 years, and how grateful they are that soccer's coming back to the core of the city. And when you look at the MLS and you look at the top 10 clubs by attendance, 8 of those clubs are in downtown areas, 8 of the top 10. Um, 4 of the bottom 5 are in suburbs. Now, they have a much bigger pool and they've got obviously a much longer track record than we do. But, I think we can be different because we can just own our own backyard. And I think that's what we're leaning into, right? We're leaning into the culture and the people of Dallas, um, who we feel, you know, doesn't really have a professional soccer team to root for.
Hmm. You mentioned you don't necessarily come from this world, and you guys founded the team 3 years ago, and so I can imagine it's been a lot of hurdles and challenges getting to the point that you're at now. What was the most surprising or challenging aspect of getting to this point within the past 3 years for yourself, who's coming kind of from the outside of the industry?
Yeah, I always joke around that I was kind of industry adjacent. I ran big sales groups for CBS Radio, for iHeartRadio, and I always had sports and sports stations or play-by-play partnerships. I ran a station here that had the Cowboys and the Rangers, and when I was in St. Louis, we had a station that had the Cardinals. So I've always been kind of around sports. I think the biggest thing though for me has been just how interested people are in what Matt and I have to say, honestly. And that might, I'm not trying to come from like an ego thing. As like, I think we got into this as business guys to bring a soccer team. And then all of a sudden people are reaching out and we're on podcasts and all those sorts of things. We didn't think about those things.
Mm.
And I think that's been, a surprise and working with cities, in politics. We originally launched our project in Garland, Texas. Got multiple city council approvals to build a facility, and at the 12th hour, they canceled the deal. And so we've had some hurdles, and we've learned some things about how to fit in to the city and the politics of a city.
Mhm. You mentioned being also out in the community a lot, and engaging with fans. What have you learned about what fans actually care about versus what you guys in the front office are thinking about, and kind of the difference between the two?
Yeah, I think fans care about, you look all across the soccer landscape, all across the world, you know, in a lot of neighborhoods, it doesn't matter if they're third division, fifth division, first division, if they're good or they're bad. I'm a Cowboy fan. I'll use them as an example. I grew up here, and every football season, I'm cussing the Cowboys. But there I am in front of a television every Sunday, bleeding blue.
Yep.
And so like creating the affinity for a brand, I think is the trick. Now, our hurdle there is obviously we're brand new. This logo has been out for less than a year. It turns a year old May 2nd here in a couple weeks. But Matt and I's viewpoint has always been, let's build something for 20 years from now, not for right now. And, part of that is, fans want to support a club that supports the community. We've made obligations to both the city of Dallas, the Parks and Rec department, to help build out soccer programs. We just launched a free academy. We're going into a park actually here in a couple weeks, and we're going to resurface an old basketball court, and we're going to make it a futsal court for the city. So, all those things, fans just want to know that they're cared about. And, for us too, we're trying to bring something to market that is going to be affordable, but feel luxury. And so, we're in the Cotton Bowl. There's a lot of seats in the Cotton Bowl. We're not going to sell 90,000 seats in the Cotton Bowl. But what that gives us is it gives us the opportunity to be aggressive on price. And so you should be able to bring your family of 4 or 5 and not, have to take out a small business loan to do it. We're doing partnerships with apparel brands. And we're going to bring to market an authentic jersey that our fans are going to be able to buy what the players wear. for at or around $100. An MLS authentic jersey, I think this season's $165. We don't want to play the replica versus authentic. Like, no, you're going to buy what the players wear, and we're going to do it at an affordable price. So, I think if we can check all those boxes and create a really good environment at the Cotton Bowl, I think we can be really successful. The city, again, we meet people all the time that are just honestly grateful for coming back so close to their backyard.
Absolutely. I mean, and speaking about the branding, man, I got to give you your kudos and props. I mean, the logo is clean. It reminds me of like a Premier League crest, like that legacy, but simple. Like you really kind of have an affinity for the brand and team with that logo. I can see that really kind of being a legacy play. So I like it a lot.
I appreciate it. We worked with Modest Works here in Dallas as an agency, and that was a really interesting process. It's just we loaded in a room. What do you like? What don't you like? You start from a total blank slate. And Matt and I were both like, what we don't want is football FC SC. Like, we wanted to be something totally unique that wasn't in American football. And then beyond that, we wanted a classic crest. When I was a kid, you played soccer tournaments, and this is back in the '80s. You exchanged patches. Like, you brought, like, I still have, like, my mom probably has 10 gallon sized bags in their attic of patches of soccer teams that I played at one point or another. And so, like, that classic patch, that's what we wanted, a classic feel. And you mentioned, EPL, or like Holland also has a really classic crest. And animals are prevalent over there too.
Hmm.
Our crest was actually hand drawn by an artist, heraldic artist in the UK. So we have about 100 versions of this thing. Some of them hand drawn on like a gas bill on how the evolution of the crest. And again, we wanted something too that was elegant, and we didn't want a city identified on it. Because again, I use that Cowboys as an example. Again, if I see the blue star here in town, it doesn't have to say Dallas Cowboys on it. I got it. It's a Dallas Cowboys logo. And I
Exactly.
know that we're ambitious, maybe overly so. And right now, to a lot of people, that might not mean anything. But 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, they'll know what it is. And we don't need to trick it up and tell everyone all the pieces of it.
I love it. Yeah, you got to start somewhere. Getting to the Cotton Bowl. I mean, obviously, this is a incredible stadium and arena, but long term, how are you guys thinking about playing? Where are you going to play at next? Is it the roadmap like having your own stadium and kind of building that out? Like, how are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, we signed a 3-year deal with 2 1-year extensions at the Cotton Bowl. It's a great playing surface. The city just put $140 million into revamping it. So it's a beautiful facility. It's certainly big. I think for us, we're not working on a stadium deal at the current moment. It's not in our plan. We're going to go this direction and play this card out. But, if you look around the landscape of any sport in America and really across the world, obviously having your own facility, being able to control parking, being able to get revenue from parking and sessions, obviously is a benefit to those clubs. So yeah, long term, sure. But right now we're focused on making the Cotton Bowl, the best environment it can be. We're going to pinch people down. We're not going to allow people to hide, sit up high. We're going to really push people down. And an interesting note about the Cotton Bowl, when it sets up for soccer, I don't know the exact. I think FIFA requires 5.5 meters or 5.5 yards from wall to inline, and the Cotton Bowl is within like a half a yard of that minimum. So, like, if you're on the front row, you're in the action.
Mhm.
I went to a bunch of games there in '94 when the World Cup was here. Matt and I went to a bunch of games. It's a good facility to watch the game, especially if you're in that lower bowl, pinched down. We'll probably set it up for 15 to 16,000 to begin with, and we'll open up sections from there as we need to.
Really cool. And can you kind of touch on the strategy around youth development and why that pipeline is so important to you guys as well?
Yeah, we did a deal about a year ago with a club called the Renegades. And we acquired 50% of the club, and they rebranded as Atletico Dallas Youth. So as of last July, Atletico Dallas Youth Club came to market. We have 160 or 165 teams, almost 3,000 kids, from little kids up to high school kids that play in our crest, every single weekend across fields all across DFW. So that's part of it. Again, I think I said earlier, we just launched our free academy, which is going to be 8-year-old, 10-year-old group. It'll be free. Obviously, it's competitive. We want to build that academy. We're going to build it from the bottom up versus launch an academy and go pilfer from the market. We're going to try to develop younger kids. And so we'll start adding those kids at the bottom. As those kids get older, we'll add more teams at the bottom of the pyramid. Obviously, waking up, 5 years, 8 years from now, these 8-year-olds are now 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. And hopefully we've done our job and developed, these kids into quality players. So, our pyramid is obviously the pro club. We also have a UPSL semi-pro team that we run, Atletico Dallas Reserve, Atletico Dallas 2, then the youth club, and then the academy team, which will hit the field this fall. The academy does. We just launched it a couple weeks ago.
Got you for sure. And obviously, we talked about you being kind of 3 years into this journey. Looking back, what's maybe one thing you wish you would have known when you first started building Atletico Dallas that you know now?
Man, it's a loaded question. There's so many. I remember Matt and I getting into a room, early on and going, okay, like what are we proficient in? What do we think that we can handle, and where are the areas too that we have no idea about? We don't know. And again, me building a career in radio, the one thing that it taught me was every day I met with a different business. So I had to be a really good marketer for that business. I was selling advertising, or I was running sales groups selling advertising. But at the end of the day, Malcolm, if you owned a roofing business and you came to me, I'd have to figure out who are your customers, where do they live, what do they look like, all those sorts of things. And I'd have to craft a solution for you. And then the next day I might meet with an optometrist, and that's going to be a different message and different offer. And so the radio teaches you kind of like this, I'd say this jack of all. You can get into a bunch of different things, and you got to be a really good marketer. They're not going to be around. So I felt really confident in the marketing side, building the brand, selling partnerships. I had a really good connection with, and we've hired Ryan Mackey, who spent 24 years at the Dallas Mavericks, who had just left the Mavericks about the same time this got going. So he's been leading our partnerships. But I would say, ticketing, merchandise, really the two areas that, I've never sold a piece of merchandise to anyone, and I've never sold a ticket to anyone. And so, knowing how important ticketing is really, right? Like ticketing to us is the lifeblood of everything. I'm going to steal a line from Ron Patel in New Mexico, but he and I became friends, and I lean on him for things every now and then. But early on, he's like, man, ticketing is everything. If you want to sell more merch, sell more tickets, more partnerships, sell more tickets, sell more concessions, sell more tickets, more parking, more tickets. Like everything is tickets. Like you can't sell more merchandise. If you sell more tickets, you'll sell more merchandise. And so like our focus has been great. How do we become a really great ticketing organization? And obviously that comes with commercial effort, but it also comes with community effort. And, so that speaks to like what we're doing in the community, our projects. We did 87 events from May 2nd last year to the end of the year. I took a kind of an old school radio approach. We've got a promotions vehicle. It's wrapped. It looks great. We call it the Wolf Wagon. And I got a street team of part-timers. Some of them are in college. Some of them are right out of college. And every weekend we're at 3, 4, 5 different places. It could be a soccer field. It could be a 5K run. It could be something at the mayor's office, whatever. But we are loaded up in that thing 10 hours a day, Saturday, 10 hours a day on Sunday, passing out, koozies and keychains. And, that's the early days of radio. That's how you won. That's how you marketed. And that's the approach I've taken with the club. And where I think we're seeing the results of it. We just got our ticketing people in house. I've got a head of ticketing that started about a month ago. But even prior to her starting, we're at almost 3,000 season ticket deposits.
Wow.
And all I did was put a link on our Shopify site. So when people were coming in to buy a shirt, they bought a deposit. And we've had no outward reach, none. We've run some paid social, but I think that you look at 3,000 season tickets. Maybe that's not a lot. Maybe it is. But what I do know is there's 3,000 people who've paid $27 to get in line to buy tickets for our first season, without us doing a whole lot of commercial outreach, which I think just shows the passion and what I hope to be the demand, on the ticketing side for the club.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's great insight. As we wind down here, obviously we have the World Cup coming here in the next couple months. But if you zoom out, like looking maybe 5 years down the line, where do you kind of see Atletico Dallas fitting into the greater like U.S. sports or soccer ecosystem?
Yeah, look, I think in 5 years, if I've got my dream hat on, um, I hope to have a USL championship under our belt somewhere, first and foremost.
There we go.
Um, and I hope to, have built the brand in such a way that, that people obviously support us locally, but see us also as a soccer brand, and think that our stuff is cool. Um, you know, we're I hired a guy that used to work at Under Armour to kind of build out our merch profile, and we feel that we can be a global soccer brand. We have already sold close to, I don't know, 8,000 items from our team shop. We've already sold things, I think 40 states, and 6 countries. So the soccer world's small, and I think if you do it right, soccer is fashion these days. You see jerseys everywhere. You see, there's a lot of great clubs that do it really well. And I think that in 5 years, yes, obviously we'd love to have a championship, but more than that, I want to see the Saturdays full, and I want to see our blue and black in the stadium and flags waving and people having a great time. Um, I want us to continue to be stewards of the community, be it either with youth development or just city projects like these street courts we want to build, and just bring more playable space, to the city. And we mean to do that through these courts. Dallas is an urban city. There's not a lot of green space to build, you know, 20 soccer field complexes in the city limits. You can't. It's too dense. But we can build 80 by 40 street courts in neighborhoods for kids to play on. So yeah, I think that's where I like to be in 5 years.
I love it. Well, Sam, appreciate your time. You got a fan in me. Last but not least, can you let people know where they can learn more about you, but also follow everything that you guys are doing with the team?
Yeah, head over to atleticodallas.com. Story of our crest, story of our club, story of how Matt and I met, buy you some merch, get you some tickets. And if you're from out of state, about a lot of great hotel rooms here in Dallas too. So hope to see you soon.
There we go. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate you.
All right, Malcolm.